Your body mirrors your karma, how physical symptoms reveal the secrets of your spiritual destiny. In the teachings of Buddhism, there is a profound insight that all physical suffering is a mirror to the soul's hidden truths. The body is not merely a vessel. It is the sacred canvas where the seeds of karma are sown and eventually bloom. It is the place where our spiritual journey unfolds, sometimes in the form of discomfort, sometimes as a deep ache. This connection between body and karma is not just a philosophical concept. It is a practical guide to understanding the relationship between our actions, thoughts, and physical well-being. As we grow older, we may notice discomfort in parts of the body we hadn't before. A persistent pain in the lower back, tightness in the chest, or tension in the throat. These are not random occurrences. In Buddhist philosophy, we understand that these physical manifestations are karmic echoes, signs that there are unresolved emotional or spiritual imprints within us. These imprints can be the result of past actions, unhealed wounds, or suppressed truths. The body, much like the mind, does not lie. It reveals the truth that the ego seeks to hide. 1. The lower back, the burden of the past. In the teachings of Buddhism, the body is seen as a sacred vessel that carries not only the weight of the physical world, but also the invisible burdens of the mind and soul. One of the most profound areas where these burdens manifest is the lower back. In ancient Buddhist texts, it is often said that the lower back is the place where we carry the karmic imprints of unresolved past actions, unexpressed emotions, and the weight of responsibility that we have unjustly taken on. It is here, in this very area, where the past can be felt most intensely, not as a mere strain, but as a heavy weight that we have unconsciously borne. As we age, especially after the age of 50, the body speaks louder. We can no longer ignore the messages it sends. The lower back begins to ache, sometimes in ways that seem inexplicable, like an old wound that refuses to heal. This pain, in Buddhist thought, is not just a physical ailment. It is the embodiment of the emotional and spiritual baggage we have carried throughout our lives. The back is not only the structural support of the body, but also metaphorically the foundation upon which we have built our entire existence. When the lower back suffers, it is an invitation to take a step back, to reflect on the weight we have been carrying, and to ask ourselves, what have I been holding on to? In the teachings of the Buddha, we learn that karma is not just the result of past actions. It is the energy that persists, vibrating within us, seeking resolution. Karma, like the river, does not cease to flow until it reaches its destination. Similarly, our unresolved burdens do not dissipate until we address them. The body is simply the canvas upon which this unresolved karma is painted. I often recall the story of a wise monk, a teacher to many, who carried a deep sadness in his heart from a long-lost friendship. This monk, known for his peace and insight, walked with a limp, not from physical injury, but from the unhealed pain of separation and the guilt of misunderstanding. One day, after years of feeling this pain in his leg, he sat in meditation, deeply reflecting on his past actions. As he meditated, the wisdom of the Buddha whispered into his heart, "Let go of what no longer serves you. Your pain will not be healed by avoidance. It will only be healed by understanding and release." It was in this moment that the monk understood that the pain he had carried was not only physical, but deeply emotional, an emotional wound that had been left untreated for too long. He forgave himself for his past mistakes, and in doing so, the physical pain slowly faded. The body had not punished him, but rather, it had been his most faithful teacher, guiding him to release what no longer served him. In the same way, many of us over the age of 50 find ourselves grappling with back pain or discomfort that seems to appear out of nowhere. But in reality, it is a manifestation of something much deeper. We may be carrying guilt from a past action we've never fully confronted, or grief that we have never allowed ourselves to feel. It may be the weight of responsibilities we have taken on without asking ourselves whether they were truly ours to carry. The Buddha teaches us that the key to freedom is in the release of attachment, whether to material things, past wounds, or even our own identities. Just as the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, seeking enlightenment, we too must sit with our own pain and face the burden we carry. What are we holding on to? Whom do we need to forgive, including ourselves? In Buddhism, Forgiveness is not merely a way of excusing someone else's actions. It is a spiritual practice that frees us from the chains of resentment, guilt, and suffering. In the act of forgiveness, we are not letting the other person off the hook, but we are letting go of the emotional hold that has kept us tethered to the past. When we forgive, we are healing both the mind and the body. We are releasing the weight we have carried for far too long. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Forgiveness is the fruit of the practice of mindfulness." It is the act of looking deeply at our suffering and seeing that it does not have to continue. This is the essence of Buddhist healing. The body, like a mirror, reflects the unresolved pain and the memories that we have buried deep within ourselves. But it also reflects our capacity to heal and transform. For those of us who have reached an age where physical discomfort is a part of life, it is essential to understand that the pain in our bodies is not separate from our spiritual journey. The lower back, in particular, holds the emotional and spiritual burden of the past. It is a reminder that it is time to face what we have long avoided. Healing begins with understanding that the body is not our enemy. It is a teacher that offers us the opportunity to release what we've been carrying, to forgive, and to move forward with a lighter heart. In the practice of meditation, we learn to observe the body without judgment. As we sit in stillness, we become aware of the tension in our backs, the discomfort in our shoulders, the tightness in our legs. Instead of focusing on the pain as something to be fixed, we listen to it. We ask, what is this pain trying to teach me? What is it that I still need to release? The answers do not always come immediately, but through consistent mindfulness and awareness, we begin to uncover the layers of unresolved emotion and karma. Just as the Buddha sat in meditation for weeks, seeking truth, we too must be patient with ourselves. Healing is not a linear process. It is a journey, a series of moments where we let go, forgive, and release. For those over 50, it is especially important to remember that our bodies are not burdens to be dreaded, but vessels of wisdom and transformation. Each ache and pain is a reminder that we are alive and that we have the power to heal, both physically and spiritually. Just as a tree sheds its leaves to make way for new growth, we too must shed the burdens of the past to make space for the peace and clarity that comes with release. By embracing the wisdom of the body, by forgiving ourselves and others, and by acknowledging the karmic patterns that arise, we can walk with greater freedom. The lower back, like all parts of the body, is not a curse. It is a blessing in disguise, a guide that leads us back to our truest selves. Through the release of past burdens, we find the path to healing, liberation, and peace. 2. The hands, the weight of unspoken anger. In the teachings of Buddhism, every part of the body holds a deeper spiritual meaning, reflecting the state of our mind and soul. The hands, in particular, are revered as the instruments of action. They represent not only what we physically grasp, but also what we hold emotionally and spiritually. When the hands become stiff, sore, or tense, it is not merely a sign of physical strain. It is often a manifestation of deeper, unresolved emotions, especially those tied to anger, resentment, and the unwillingness to let go. As we journey through life, it is inevitable that we will experience moments of anger or jealousy. These emotions, like poison, seep into the body, especially when left unchecked. The hands are particularly susceptible to these emotional imprints, as they are the parts of us that grasp tightly to experiences, memories, and attachments. The act of clenching our fists, of holding on to grudges, becomes a form of spiritual resistance. We refuse to release, to forgive, to move on, and in doing so, we carry the weight of these emotions in the form of physical pain. I recall a personal experience from my own practice. There was a time when my fingers ached deeply, a sharp pain that would not go away. At first, I believed it was the result of overuse or perhaps a physical injury. But as I sat in meditation, listening deeply to my body, I realized that the pain in my hands was not physical at all. It was the manifestation of long-held resentment, the kind that had festered silently within me for years. I had been holding on to anger toward a friend who had wronged me, and my hands had become the silent bearers of that unresolved emotion. In Buddhist philosophy, anger is often seen as a fire that burns from within, consuming us without our knowing. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like holding a burning coal in our hand. expecting to harm another, while, in reality, it is ourselves who suffer the most. I realized in that moment that my clenched hands were not just holding on to anger toward others, but they were also holding the anger I had toward myself, toward the parts of me that felt betrayed, vulnerable, and unworthy. The ancient Zen teachings offer a profound insight. To hold on to anger is to carry a burden that only the self can bear. The hands, in this context, become symbolic of our unwillingness to let go of the past. The more tightly we grasp, the more pain we endure. But the lesson here is not to condemn the hands or the anger they hold. Instead, it is an invitation to release, to soften, and to allow ourselves to heal. Through the practice of meditation, I began to understand the importance of mindfulness in releasing anger. With each breath, I allowed myself to soften, to literally and figuratively open my hands. As I meditated, I visualized my hands filled with light that symbolized forgiveness, compassion, and release. With each inhale, I imagined drawing in peace, and with each exhale, I released a name, a memory, a grievance that had long kept me bound. This process of letting go was not immediate, nor was it easy. In fact, it was one of the most difficult practices I've ever undertaken. But with time, my hands began to soften. The tension that had built up in my fingers slowly began to dissipate. The ache in my hands was replaced by a feeling of lightness, a sense of freedom that I had not experienced in years. And in that softness, I found not just relief from physical pain, but a deep sense of emotional release. My heart, too, softened. There is an old Buddhist story about a monk who, after years of training, was finally ready to take on the role of teacher. On his first day in front of his students, he reached out to lift a cup of tea. But his hands were stiff and unyielding, as though they were too heavy with the weight of all his unspoken anger and regret. His teacher, noticing the tension, smiled and gently told him, "Until you learn to release the tight grip on your hands, you will never be able to fully release the grasp on your heart." It was in that moment that the monk realized the true lesson of forgiveness, both of others and of himself. Anger, when left unaddressed, not only poisons our relationships, but also traps us in a cycle of suffering that affects our physical health. The hands, when gripped by anger, hold the past in a way that prevents us from moving forward. But just as the Buddha taught, in letting go, you free yourself. This release is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. It requires courage to open the hands, to release the things we have held onto for so long, and to trust that in the act of surrender, we will find healing. As we grow older, it becomes all the more important to examine what we are holding onto, whether it be past grievances, old hurts, or even memories of things we wish we could change. The body, in its wisdom, reflects the burdens we refuse to release. The stiffness in our hands can become a reflection of the emotional weight we carry. And just as we must be mindful of what we consume for our physical health, so too must we be mindful of what we hold in our hearts. The hands can be a powerful tool for healing when we learn to release the grip of anger. When we let go of the need to control, to punish, or to possess, we open ourselves up to a deeper level of freedom. The hands, which once grasped tightly, can then be the hands that give freely, giving love, forgiveness, and compassion. In the end, the teachings of the Buddha remind us that the path to peace is not through control, but through surrender. The hands, like all parts of the body, are not here to punish us, but to teach us. The pain in our hands is not a curse, but a message, a reminder that it is time to release, to soften, and to allow ourselves the freedom of forgiveness. By doing so, we heal not only our bodies, but our hearts, and in that healing, we become the compassionate beings we are destined to be. Let go or be dragged. This Zen teaching serves as a simple yet profound reminder. To hold on too tightly is to continue suffering, but to release, to let go, is to open the hands, the heart, and the soul to the beauty of the present moment, free from the weight of the past. The throat, the unspoken truths. In Buddhist teachings, the throat is much more than a physical part of the body. It is seen as a sacred center of communication. It is through the throat that we express our truths, our fears, our desires, and our love. In many ways, the throat represents the bridge between our inner world and the external world. When we are unable to speak freely, to express what we truly feel or think, it becomes a reflection of the soul's unresolved karma. The tightness in the throat, the discomfort we sometimes experience when we try to speak, is not just a physical ailment. It is the manifestation of unspoken truths, buried emotions, and the weight of unsaid words. The Buddha, in his wisdom, often emphasized the importance of right speech, one of the components of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right speech is not just about speaking truthfully, but also about speaking with mindfulness and compassion. When we withhold our truth, whether out of fear, pride, or guilt, we create an internal block that not only disturbs our peace, but also distances us from the authenticity of our being. The act of withholding a simple truth or carrying a hidden apology can manifest as a tightness in the throat, a feeling of something stuck that cannot be expressed. I remember a young woman, a student of mine, who came to me in search of guidance. She had been feeling an uncomfortable, persistent tightness in her throat for months. No medical cause could be found, and yet the discomfort remained. She had tried various remedies, herbs, physical therapy, but nothing alleviated the strain. It was during one of our deep meditation sessions that the answer emerged, not from the body, but from her heart. As she meditated on her throat, her breath shallow and constricted, she realized that she had been carrying an unspoken apology for years. There was a person from her past with whom she had shared a deep conflict, and she had never been able to find the courage to apologize. Her silence, she realized, had been the source of her discomfort, and the block in her throat was her body's reflection of that unresolved emotional pain. In Buddhist practice, we understand that silence can be as powerful as speech, but silence can also be an act of avoidance. We are taught that when we suppress words, whether out of fear, shame, or resentment, we create karmic patterns that linger in the body. These suppressed truths do not disappear. They accumulate, often becoming manifest in physical ailments like throat tightness, or even in the form of illness. The throat, the seat of expression, holds the energetic imprint of what we have failed to say, whether it's a truth we've avoided or a feeling we've denied. There is an ancient story about a monk who spent many years in meditation, seeking the answer to the suffering he felt in his throat. In the stillness of his practice, he heard a voice within him asking, "What have you been silent about?" The monk was startled, for he had spent years in silence, yet he realized that the voice was not from outside, but from deep within. He understood that his silence had not been pure. It had been the silence of unresolved emotions, of unspoken truths he had hidden even from himself. As he began to speak those truths aloud in his meditation, his throat, once tight and constricted, opened, and a deep sense of peace washed over him. The Buddha often reminded his followers, the one who speaks truth liberates not only others, but also themselves. When we are unable to speak our truth, it is as though we are trapping our soul in a cage. The throat becomes constricted and the breath becomes shallow. But once we find the courage to speak what has been hidden, to apologize where we have wronged, or to express what we have long repressed, the body responds with release. The throat opens, the voice becomes clear, and the energy of life flows more freely. My student, after realizing the weight of her unspoken apology, took the courageous step to reach out to the person she had hurt. She did not do it expecting forgiveness. She did it because it was time to free herself. With each word she spoke, her throat relaxed, and the discomfort that had plagued her for months gradually faded. In the weeks that followed, she reported feeling a profound sense of peace. It was as if the very act of expressing her truth had lifted a heavy burden from her heart and from her body. The Buddha's teachings also speak of the importance of forgiveness, both for others and for ourselves. In many cases, the things that block our throat are not just the words we have failed to say to others, but the harsh judgments we have silently held toward ourselves. Forgiveness is an essential practice for releasing the blockages in the throat. When we can forgive, we clear the energy that has built up around the words we have been afraid to speak. There is another teaching from Buddhist philosophy that emphasizes the connection between speech and the heart. The tongue and the heart are often seen as two aspects of the same truth. Right speech arises from a heart that is pure and clear. When our heart is clouded with resentment, fear, or anger, our speech becomes distorted and our throat suffers. But when we purify the heart through mindfulness, compassion, and understanding, our speech becomes an expression of love and truth. The Buddha spoke of the transformative power of speech. Words have the power to heal, but they also have the power to harm. Speak only when your words are more beautiful than silence. In Zen, there is a practice known as deep listening, which teaches us to listen with our entire being, not just with our ears. In this practice, we learn that speaking and listening are deeply interconnected. When we speak with mindfulness, we create a space for the other to listen and to heal as well. This is the essence of compassionate communication, and it begins with our willingness to open the throat, to express our truths, and to listen to the truths of others without judgment. For those of us who may be struggling with a blocked throat, it is important to remember that healing comes not just from physical remedies, but from spiritual openness. Begin by asking yourself, what truths have I been avoiding? What do I need to say, either to others or to myself? Sometimes, the act of writing down those truths or speaking them aloud, even in solitude, can create the space needed for healing. Remember, just as the Buddha taught, when we speak with truth and love, our words carry the power to transform, to heal, and to liberate. The throat, like the heart, is a channel of life energy. When it is blocked, the flow of life becomes constricted. But when we speak with clarity, with compassion, and with truth, the throat becomes a conduit for healing, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. It is through our words that we connect with the essence of who we truly are. And it is through our words that we can bring about peace, both within and without. May we all find the courage to speak our truths and to listen deeply to the wisdom of our hearts. May we honor the sacred space of the throat, and may we always speak with the intention of healing, understanding, and compassion. The eyes, seeing beyond illusions. In Buddhist philosophy, the eyes are often seen as more than just organs of physical perception. They are considered the windows through which we view the world, not only the world around us, but also the world within us. The clarity of our vision is directly tied to the clarity of our mind and spirit. As we grow older, we may experience changes in our physical sight, but these shifts often reflect deeper spiritual shifts. The eyes in Buddhism are not just for seeing the material world. They are also instruments for seeing the truth, for awakening to the deeper layers of reality. When our vision begins to blur, it may not simply be a sign that we need glasses. It is often a sign that we have been avoiding truths within ourselves. In many Buddhist teachings, it is said that we see the world not as it is, but as we are. Our attachments, our desires, and our fears cloud our perception. We see what we want to see, rather than what is truly there. When we refuse to face the reality of our lives, when we hide from uncomfortable truths, our vision, both spiritual and physical, becomes clouded. We begin to see the world through the lens of our illusions, distorting the truth to fit our comfort. The Buddha himself often spoke of the illusion of the world, saying that most people walk through life sleeping, unaware of the truth that lies beneath their daily experiences. A story from the Buddha's life comes to mind. It is said that, early in his journey to enlightenment, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, struggled with seeing beyond the illusion of the world. He was born into privilege, surrounded by wealth, beauty, and pleasure. But despite having everything the world could offer, he sensed something deeper was missing, an inner emptiness that no material possession could fill. One day, after seeing an old man, a sick person, and a corpse, he was struck by the reality of life's impermanence. His eyes were opened, not just physically, but spiritually. He began to see the truth of suffering, birth, aging, sickness, and death. His world, once filled with illusion, became clear. The Buddha's words ring true. To see is to know is to awaken. As we age, our own seeing can become clouded in similar ways. We may have spent much of our lives chasing after material success, seeking pleasure, or avoiding pain, all the while turning a blind eye to the deeper truths of life. The eyes, once sharp and clear, may begin to fail us as a reminder that we too have neglected to see beyond the surface. But in Buddhist practice, the clouding of vision is not just an inevitable consequence of aging. It is a spiritual signpost, a chance to reflect and awaken. The Buddha taught that true vision is not about looking outward, but looking inward. What you are looking for is already within you, he said. As we begin to age, our vision may deteriorate in the material sense, but this is also the opportunity to deepen our spiritual vision. We no longer need to see the world through the eyes of attachment or illusion. We can learn to see clearly, with the eyes of wisdom and awareness. This kind of seeing comes not from the eyes alone, but from the heart and mind. There is a beautiful story in Zen Buddhism about a monk who was struggling to see beyond his attachments. One day, he asked his teacher, "Master, how do I attain enlightenment? How do I truly see the truth?" The master took him outside, handed him a flower, and said, "See this flower. Look deeply at it." The monk gazed at the flower but only saw its surface, its petals, its colors, its shape. He said, "I see the flower, but I do not understand it." The master smiled and gently replied, "You see with your eyes, but not with your heart. True seeing is the awareness that resides within." True seeing, according to Buddhist wisdom, is not the perception of the physical world alone. It is the awareness that transcends the mind's tendency to distort reality. It is the ability to see life as it truly is, impermanent, interconnected, and ultimately beyond the grasp of ego. When we are attached to the illusions of permanence, of control, or of separateness, our vision becomes obscured. We see only what we want to see, not what is. The Buddha's teachings on mindfulness and meditation offer us the key to unlocking this deeper vision. Through practices like meditation, we learn to quiet the mind and peel away the layers of illusion that cloud our perception. When we meditate, we begin to notice how our thoughts, desires, and fears distort our experience. With patience and awareness, we start to see the world as it is, without judgment or attachment. We start to see the truth that lies behind the veil of illusion. In my own practice, I have seen how, as we grow older, we are often forced to confront the illusions we've clung to for so long. The physical aging process forces us to face the impermanence of life. The body begins to slow, the face may wrinkle, and the energy of youth fades. But in that fading, there is also an opportunity. It is an opportunity to see beyond the illusions of youth, beauty, and success. It is a chance to awaken to the truth of life's fleeting nature and to embrace it fully. In Buddhist tradition, the eyes are also linked to the practice of compassion. When we learn to see clearly, we begin to see not only the world around us, but also the suffering within others. Compassion arises from true vision. We cannot truly help others if we are blinded by our own desires and attachments. But when we open our eyes with mindfulness, we see the pain of others as our own, and we act with love and understanding. When you see, you will act, the Buddha said. When you see the truth of suffering, you will act to alleviate it. For those of us over 50, this process of seeing clearly can be a lifelong journey. Our physical sight may fail us, but this does not mean our spiritual vision must follow. In fact, this is the time to sharpen our spiritual eyes, to look deeply at the world and ourselves. We begin to see the truth of our impermanence, the interconnection of all beings, and the beauty that lies in letting go of our attachments. This is the true vision that leads to enlightenment. The vision that comes not from the eyes alone, but from the heart that embraces the world with wisdom, compassion, and love. In the end, the Buddha's words guide us. When the eye of wisdom is opened, all things are seen as they are, and there is no longer confusion or suffering. May we all find the courage to open our eyes, not just to the world around us, but to the deeper truth within, seeing beyond the illusions that have bound us, and awakening to the clarity that leads to peace. 5. The feet, walking the path of Dharma. In Buddhist philosophy, the feet are more than just physical appendages. They are symbols of our journey through life. The feet carry us through every step, both literally and metaphorically, guiding us along the path of Dharma, the path of righteousness, of living in harmony with our true nature. The feet, in their humble role, represent our ability to move with purpose, to progress along the spiritual journey, and to embrace our life's mission. However, when we hesitate, when we resist moving forward, it is often a sign that there is something deeper within us that holds us back. Our attachment to the past, our unresolved karma, or our fear of the unknown. When the feet feel heavy, it is not merely physical tiredness. It is often the weight of spiritual resistance. We all carry the burdens of our past decisions, the mistakes we've made, the regrets we've accumulated. These unresolved karmic imprints can manifest in our feet as a reluctance to take the next step, a feeling of being stuck, unable to move forward with ease. We may find ourselves walking slowly, dragging our feet, burdened by the past, unable to take confident steps toward our true purpose. In Buddhism, karma is not just a force that shapes our past, it is also a force that shapes our present and future. Our past actions, whether positive or negative, have an energetic imprint that can affect how we walk in the world. This karmic energy can weigh us down, preventing us from walking the path of Dharma with clarity and purpose. But the beauty of Buddhist practice lies in the understanding that we are not prisoners to our past. Through mindfulness, awareness, and compassionate action, we can begin to shed the burdens that cling to us, allowing our feet to move freely, with intention and alignment to our true nature. There is a beautiful story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates this concept. When the Buddha was a young prince, his life was filled with comfort and luxury. But despite all the wealth and indulgence, he felt a deep dissatisfaction, a sense that something was missing. One day, as he ventured beyond the palace walls, he encountered the suffering of old age, sickness, and death. These experiences shook him to his core, and he realized that no matter how much he tried to avoid it, suffering was an inescapable part of life. This realization became the catalyst for his journey toward enlightenment. He left behind his life of privilege and set out on a quest for truth. His first steps were filled with uncertainty, for the path of Dharma was not a clear or easy one. Yet, with each step, he shed the burdens of his past, his attachment to wealth, status, and worldly desires. As he walked, his feet became lighter, his heart more open, and his steps more confident. The Buddha's path was not without challenges, but his feet carried him with purpose because he had aligned his life with the truth of impermanence and compassion. In shedding the burdens of his past, he found the strength to move forward, no longer weighed down by the attachments that had once defined him. His journey became a model for all of us, showing that when we walk in alignment with our true nature, with compassion and awareness, the path ahead becomes clearer and our steps become more purposeful. For many of us, the path of Dharma may feel unclear or overwhelming. We may feel unsure of our purpose or uncertain about the direction we should take. The karmic patterns from our past, our fears, regrets, and attachments can cloud our vision and make us hesitant to move forward. But the teachings of the Buddha remind us that the path of Dharma is not about perfection or certainty. It is about making each step with mindfulness and intention. It is about walking with awareness, letting go of the weight of the past, and trusting that each step is part of the journey toward enlightenment. As we age, our steps may slow down and our physical body may feel heavier. But this is also an invitation to deepen our understanding of the path we are walking. The Buddha taught that the true purpose of life is not to avoid suffering, but to embrace it with wisdom and compassion. As we walk the path of Dharma, we learn to face the challenges of life with courage, knowing that every step is an opportunity to shed the burdens of the past and move closer to the truth of who we are. In my own practice, I have found that when I feel hesitant or unsure, it often reflects unresolved karmic patterns. I remember a time when I was struggling with a decision, whether to stay in a comfortable but unfulfilling situation or to take a leap of faith and embrace a new direction. My feet felt heavy, as though they were reluctant to move forward. But through meditation and self-reflection, I realized that the hesitation was rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of making the wrong choice. Once I acknowledged these fears and released them, my steps became lighter. I moved forward with clarity, no longer burdened by the attachments that had held me back. This is the power of walking the path of Dharma. It is not about avoiding challenges or seeking comfort, but about walking with intention, understanding that each step is an opportunity to align with our true purpose. When we release the karmic burdens of the past, whether they be fears, regrets, or attachments, we find that our steps become lighter, our hearts more open, and our journey more purposeful. A Zen teacher once said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." But this is not just any step. It is a step taken with mindfulness, with awareness of the present moment. Each step on the path of Dharma is an opportunity to shed the weight of the past, to let go of the illusions that have held us back, and to walk with the grace and wisdom of the Buddha. It is through this alignment with our true nature that we find the strength to walk forward, no longer burdened by the past, but filled with the lightness of the present moment. The path of Dharma is not about reaching a specific destination. It is about the journey itself. It is about the steps we take each day, the choices we make, and the way we align our hearts with the truth. When we walk this path with mindfulness and compassion, we find that our feet carry us forward with greater ease, and our lives become a reflection of the wisdom and love that reside within us. May we all find the courage to take the next step, to shed the burdens of the past, and to walk the path of Dharma with confidence, grace, and compassion. May our feet carry us toward enlightenment, one mindful step at a time. Healing through awareness. In Buddhism, healing is understood not as the mere absence of pain, but as the presence of awareness. It is the mindful engagement with the body, the emotions, and the mind, where each sensation, each discomfort, becomes an opportunity for transformation. The body speaks to us in ways that words cannot fully express. It tells the story of our lives, our suffering, and our wisdom, if only we are willing to listen. The Buddha's teachings remind us that to heal is to return to wholeness, and wholeness comes through awareness, presence, and understanding. The body is not simply a physical vessel. It is the sacred temple that houses our soul, the very space where our karmic imprints are expressed. Every ache, every discomfort carries a message from deep within us, a message that has been shaped by past actions, thoughts, and intentions. The body, in its wisdom, reflects the accumulated karma we have yet to address, the emotional wounds we have failed to heal, and the truths we have resisted facing. Healing, then, begins not with fighting against the body's discomforts, but with learning to listen deeply, with compassion, to the messages it carries. There is an old story from the Buddha's time that offers profound insight into the nature of healing. It is said that a woman once came to the Buddha, distressed by the deep grief she carried after the death of her child. In her sorrow, she had tried everything to escape the pain, to fill the emptiness with external comforts, but nothing helped. The Buddha, knowing that healing could not come from outside, gently instructed her to go into the village and find a mustard seed from a family that had never experienced death or suffering. The woman, hopeful, went to each house, but everywhere she went, she found that death had touched each family, and sorrow was an inescapable part of life. Returning to the Buddha, she understood that suffering was universal. She learned that healing does not lie in escaping pain, but in embracing it with awareness and understanding. Healing through awareness is not about curing the body or forcing it to conform to our expectations. It is not a battle to eradicate pain or discomfort, but rather a journey of reconciliation with the self. The body does not simply reflect our physical state, it also embodies our emotional and spiritual state. When we experience physical discomfort, it is often a reflection of emotional or mental blockages, grief that has not been expressed, anger that has not been released, guilt that has not been forgiven. These emotional states lodge themselves in the body, often in the form of tension, pain, or illness. Take, for example, the practice of mindfulness meditation, a core teaching of the Buddha. When we meditate, we sit in stillness and turn our attention inward. We observe the sensations in our body, the tightness in our shoulders, the ache in our knees, the flutter of our heart. Instead of pushing these sensations away, we simply acknowledge them. We ask, what message does this pain carry? What is it trying to teach me? With each breath, we soften our relationship with the discomfort. This practice allows us to unravel the spiritual knots that bind us, to release the emotional weight we have carried for so long. Healing is not about avoiding pain, but about learning to meet it with awareness and compassion. The Zen master's teaching, to heal is to return to wholeness, is a reminder that healing is a process of integration. It is the act of embracing all parts of ourselves, the broken, the wounded, the whole, and understanding that each part of us has its own wisdom to offer. When we listen with compassion, when we release what we have held too tightly, be it anger, fear, or attachment, we begin the process of true healing. Consider the story of the Buddha's disciple, Ananda. He was known for his deep compassion, but also for his intense attachment to his beloved teacher. When the Buddha passed away, Ananda was filled with grief, unable to accept the loss. His sorrow was so intense that it manifested physically. His body became weak, his steps faltered, and his heart was heavy. In his time of suffering, Ananda turned to the Buddha's teachings for guidance. Through mindfulness and awareness, he began to understand that the pain he was feeling was not only the result of his attachment to the Buddha, but also his resistance to the impermanence of life. By embracing the truth of impermanence, Ananda found peace. His grief softened, and his body responded with renewed strength. Through this awareness, Ananda realized that true healing comes not from clinging to the past, but from accepting the present moment with all of its pain and beauty. In our own lives, we too must learn to heal through awareness. We must cultivate a deep understanding of our own bodies, emotions, and thoughts. When we experience physical pain, we must ask, what is this pain trying to teach me? When we feel sorrow, we must ask, what lesson is hidden within this grief? The body, in all its discomforts, holds the key to our liberation. Through the process of listening, understanding, and releasing, we begin to walk the path of healing, a path that ultimately leads to freedom. Healing, as taught in Buddhism, is not a destination. It is a way of being, a continual process of returning to wholeness. It is a path of awareness, compassion, and presence. The body is not a prison that holds us captive. It is a sacred temple that holds the story of our soul. To honor the body is to honor our karma, the karma that has shaped us and the karma we are creating. And through that honoring, we begin to walk the path of spiritual freedom. The Buddha's teachings remind us that liberation is not the absence of suffering, but the awakening through it. Every symptom, every ache is an opportunity for transformation. When we listen deeply with compassion and understanding, we begin to unravel the layers of suffering and move closer to the peace that lies at the heart of all things. Healing through awareness is not a quick fix, but a lifelong journey, a journey of self-discovery, of releasing, of embracing the wisdom that is already within us. And as we heal, we not only free ourselves, but also become a source of healing for the world around us. Healing is not about curing the body, but about embracing the wisdom it carries. This is the essence of Buddhist healing, an invitation to walk the path of awareness, to listen to the body's messages, and to transform suffering into wisdom, peace, and liberation. Are you ready to listen to what your body and soul are truly telling you? The pains and strange sensations in our bodies that we often view as nuisances may actually be opportunities for us to face ourselves and heal emotional wounds we've long avoided. Remember, healing is not simply about curing the body, but about awakening through the messages it carries. This video contains invaluable lessons on how to listen to your body, understand karma, and walk the path to spiritual freedom. Once you incorporate this wisdom into your everyday life, you'll begin to feel noticeable changes in both your health and spirit. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to share it and leave a comment below. Your thoughts and questions are important, and they help us grow together. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss any upcoming valuable videos. Thank you for watching, and I hope you continue your journey of self-discovery with me.